the first cybersecurity workshop for cyber at UCR. Linux terminal and network enumeration. All right. My name is Kevin Din. I'm the person who works the head shop, who heads the workshop. If you weren't here on Wednesday, then tell your friends to watch this recording because this is actually really important if you don't know this information yet. Okay, just to preface this, I'm using a VM of Kali Linux. We should have installed this the first time that we had a general meeting. Like, everybody should have this on their computer. The way you log in using root is you type in TOOR, which is root backwards. That's the login for root. That's the default login for root on Kali. Okay, clear this terminal. Okay, that was only important during the meeting. Okay, Linux terminal advantages. Okay, the reason Linux terminal is important, and you will be learning it, is because on Linux, unlike Windows, almost everything on the entire machine can be controlled from the terminal. The terminal is made so that every app can be run from it. Basically everything can be started or reached from the terminal and created or deleted with the terminal. So the terminal has an all-encompassing power over the machine. It's like you're God when you have your hands on the terminal. Okay, so the thing that differentiates Linux from Windows, you'll find when you're doing cybersecurity, is a lot of the tools like Nmap, for example, can only be run from the terminal. They have no graphical GUI. They don't have any sort of window that opens up like, I don't know, Firefox does. This is separate. When you open Firefox, which is called Iceweasel on Linux, it's different from the terminal. This Nmap app is running straight from the terminal. Okay, so it's very vital that you learn how to use the terminal so that you can control your machine in cybersecurity. So how does the terminal work? In every command, we have several parts. There's going to be your username, which comes first. See, my username here is root@Kali. And then there's the prompt. This means when you see this symbol, there's going to be a symbol, either a $sign or a sharp sign. And this means that the terminal is ready to take instructions. So with instructions, you're going to have flags. Flags are directions for the specific program that you're using. So when I have Nmap, for example, I need to run it with a flag IP. Without running it with an IP flag, then it's not going to, well, it's not going to do anything. But I'll show you a more applicable example. So this is ls. What this does is it displays every directory and file inside the directory that you are currently in. We're in the kernel right now. So it displays all of the stuff right here that I can access straight from the terminal. Okay, let's close Iceweasel. Like I said, this is an app. It has a GUI. Anything that doesn't have a GUI runs straight from the terminal. Okay, but if I type in ls, A. So A is a flag. See this right here. This is a direction to the program to act differently, to behave differently. And see, now that I've entered A, it shows completely different files. It shows files that I don't normally see. So what's important to remember is that when you enter flags into a command, then it changes how the command behaves. Okay, so if you're lost, every program has a list of helpful commands so that you can use to find out what you're doing. Man is probably the most important of these commands because what it does is it opens a manual. So I've just used man for ls, and here is the white pages or the manual for what ls does. It will let you know everything about the program. And see, if you look here, it shows you the flags. This is really important because if you don't know how to manipulate the program, you can find out by reading the man pages. So remember, just man and the program name. All right. help is a little more nuanced. You use it when you're already in a program, I believe, and then you use it to find out what a command does inside the program. So some of these programs, like Metasploitable, for example, will cause a program to open inside the terminal. So you can use help to get help with those commands that you will be using inside Metasploitable. ls has already been displayed. It lists everything that the directory contains when your terminal is in that given directory. So let's ls here. So it shows all of this. These are all directories. So let's go inside the directory documents. This is the cd command. It allows you to enter a different directory from the directory you're already in. And now, if we ls, it shows us what's inside documents. There's nothing inside documents here. So let's go back. Okay, so when you're typing things into the terminal, Linux is your friend. If you have previously typed anything in, then look, you can press the up and down keys to go through previous commands. So if you have previous commands that you need edited, for example, you screw up zenmap, and you type in zenmy, right? And it doesn't do anything, because that's not a command. Well, you can press up, and then you can instantly edit the command, and then it will run zenmap. That's the fast way to manipulate the terminal when you make mistakes. Another useful thing that a terminal can do is complete commands for you. It will allow you to complete commands when there is no other query that could be entered. So if you type in enough of the command to where the computer is not confused what you want, you're able to... Here, let me just show you. CD, down, low, and then the computer knows what comes next. It's the letters ADS. So when I press tab, it will complete the rest of the query for me, and I'm able to enter that. So that's a fast way to manipulate Linux terminal. Use tab to complete commands. Okay. If you're playing around with a terminal and it freezes and it breaks on you, there's a couple things you can do. You can press Control-C. And what this does is it stops any running program. For example, let me run zenmap for you guys. Okay, so this is the program itself that is running. And if I press Control-C, then you'll see that the window disappeared because zenmap has stopped. And then it asks me for another query. So that means the terminal has been reset. If nothing's working, then you can use Control-D. And this completely closes the terminal. If all else fails, you can hit escape, but that's just a crash command. It completely stops whatever is running. Okay, so another thing is you have to make sure you don't unintentionally delete things. Linux is different from Windows. It doesn't have any sort of recycle bin or garbage can like Windows and Mac do. So when you delete something, it is gone for good. When you delete something, it's gone forever. When you use RM, it removes it from the machine completely. It's completely dereferenced. There is no recovering it. So be careful when you delete things. You'll never get them back. This is only a cursory, this is only a crash course, mind you. So if you want to learn more about the command line, and you should, because this is very important to cybersecurity, I recommend that you go on Code Academy and learn their course, learn the command line. It's right here. The URL is right here. Okay, so this will give you a more in-depth lesson on the concepts that I'm teaching now, and it will teach you commands that I didn't teach you. Really common security line entries include nmap. So nmap is, we'll be discussing this later. It's the latter half of this talk. Nmap is a tool for network enumeration. And network enumeration is important because without knowing a computer, you cannot attack it. It's like robbing a house. You need to find the entrances before you can get to what's inside. So let's go on our Kali instance. And let's try out nmap to, I don't know, home address. Nah, actually that's not a good idea. We'll just run nmap dry. This is the program itself. And you'll notice it runs straight in the terminal. So you're not able to use a GUI with it. This is why ZenMap comes in handy. For the new people in the club, you're probably not going to be used to manipulating the terminal. So I've showed ZenMap earlier during the presentation, but what ZenMap is a graphical GUI of the ZenMap interface. So instead of typing commands in, you're able to click things in the program and manipulate it that way. This is where you enter the IP of the target that you want to scan. And then all of the information is displayed here, and you can examine it using the ZenMap GUI. One of the important things to note here is that this is a topology button. When you scan a network, it will show you a topology, which we'll go over later. cd var log. So this command opens up the directory where all the log files are kept. This is really important in security because when somebody tries to break into your machine, they're going to leave a lot of traces. They're going to leave a lot of log files. And by reading the log files, you can find out exactly who is attacking you, how, and that will tell you how to stop it. Or conversely, when you're attacking something, you want to delete any trace that you were there. Okay, so cat is important because it dumps a file's contents to screen. So you're able to dump the log files to the terminal. So when you use cat, it spills all the contents of a file to the terminal here. I don't have any files to show you right now. So you can try that on your own with a log file. Tail is another flavor of dump command. So it allows you to do the same thing cat does, but it only dumps the last 10 lines. It allows you to see what's gone on recently as compared to the entire file. Cat will dump the entire file. And sometimes these are insanely long, like pages and pages and pages of the terminal. So tail is useful because it filters out things that you might not want. Other useful commands, Control L. So when there's a lot of garbage in your terminal window and it's distracting you, you can press Control L and it will clear the entire terminal, like I just did. Control D was gone over earlier. It exits the terminal. You can do this when the terminal is broken or when you're done using it. And RM is really useful too, although, as I said earlier, once you delete something, it's gone forever. RM is the delete command for Linux terminal. So you hit RM and then you hit the file name or the directory in, and then it will delete whatever you specified. Just be very careful because Linux doesn't have any safeguards. You could end up deleting the whole OS from the terminal if you wanted to. Linux allows that. This is really useful when you need to delete suspicious files or malware off your computer. Just make sure you're not deleting willy-nilly because you could destroy things that are integral to the working of your system. Just make sure that if you don't know something, Google it. And if Google says that it's a working part of your OS, then don't delete it because you can't get it back that easily. Okay, so if there's a command you can't remember, but you know what it is, you remember some part of it, then you can use compgen dash, see this is a flag, compgen dash AC, and then this symbol here should be above your enter key. So if you hold shift and then hit the key above your enter, then it should produce this symbol. grep allows you to parse through large files for a string. So all of this combined, I'll show you how it works. compgen dash AC symbol grep, let's say T. And now that I've used this, it will show you every command that is available on the computer that has the letter T in it. And this is pages upon pages. So if you shorten your query, then it will show you everything. And if you lengthen your query, then it will show you more specific results. Like, here, I'll use the up button. That's fast. grep touch. So there are only two commands named touch. But if I up and then type in ouch, it will show me everything with the query ouch inside it, including things that do not explicitly start with the query ouch. Okay, so this is a very important command because every version of Linux has different programs installed. Sometimes you try and use a command and it just doesn't work. Well, CompGen shows you whether or not the computer actually has the program that you're trying to use. Sometimes the computer is not broken, it just doesn't have the packages you're trying to manipulate. So when you think something is broken, it's advisable that you CompGen it first and see if it's on the device. Okay. Now that all that is over with, we'll move on to network enumeration. So what does running Nmap and Zenmap accomplish? It gives you a list of open ports through a process of ports. Computers talk to each other by telling each other that they want information and telling each other that they'll send information. So normally computers have all these open ports, and what the ports do is they shout out to other computers on the network, "Hey, I'm looking for information." So another computer will come and shout out to that computer, "Hey, I'm willing to give you information." And then there's an exchange of data called a packet stream. Well, what Nmap does is it shouts out to all the other computers on the network. Well, actually, at least the computer that you have targeted by IP. And what it does is it shouts out to the computer, "Hey, I have information for these particular ports." And then it lists all the ports out and it shouts out to all the ports. And when the ports shout back, "Okay, I'm ready to take your information," Nmap just moves on to the next port. And it tells you which of these ports are empty or which of these ports are working. But keep in mind, this is going to trip the computer that you're scanning like crazy. It's going to tell the log files over and over that somebody is probing the computer. So it's not very quiet. What exactly are ports? Well, I explained that earlier. There's an exchange of information that happens through the ports, and there are services behind the ports that use these information. So each port number is assigned to a particular service. For example, I have Skype, and this uses, a certain group of ports. So each particular service is allowed to give instructions to machine or accept info on that machine's behalf through those ports. There are varying things that you can accomplish with an open port, but as hackers, the main purpose of finding an open port is to run exploits. Okay, so that's what ports are important for. Using ports, you can compromise a computer. What are exploits? There are problems with the software built for the computer behind those ports that allow you to do things that weren't intended with the software. For example, these ports are for RPC, and remote procedure protocol can be used to update software on the computer, but it can also be used to install malware, because these are the ports that contain instructions for installation and accept packages that the computer is meant to install. When you're a defender, you want to close as many of these vulnerable ports as possible so that they can't be manipulated to do malicious things, and you need to make sure that whatever information comes in does not manipulate the programs in a way that is not intended for the computer. Because this is how people gain control of your computer. This is how they steal information. This is how they get your computer to do nasty things. They manipulate it through the ports. Okay, so we talked about topology earlier a little with Zenmap. So why is topology important? Well, what is a topology to begin with? Okay, so this section here represents the World Wide Web and everything inside it, all the outwards traffic. And then this is the internal network. This is the internal network. And then these are the machines that connect the World Wide Web to the internal network. For if this guy on this workstation needs to Google something on the World Wide Web, it goes through this, the query comes here, the question comes here, and then it comes back through and the answer goes back into the workstation. The idea about this setup is that when you're in the World Wide Web and not inside the internal network itself, all the traffic has to go through the physical firewall that is here. The firewall will block all incoming traffic that is malicious or suspicious or whatever. And thus, it can't reach these machines here because it gets filtered by the firewall. See, when you are in the World Wide Web, you only know the IP for the firewall. And once you scan that, that doesn't even give you any credible information. What matters is these computers. These are the computers that you want to compromise. The firewall is made so that it's hard to be, so that it can't be broken into very easily. The only thing in the network that receives traffic from the World Wide Web is this firewall here, this physical firewall. So this is called a forward-facing device. The forward-facing device faces the danger, and then all of these are inward-facing devices facing the internal network. They're not exposed directly to the internet. Why is this important? Well, if they can't scan these computers because all the traffic from the web goes through the firewall and stops there, then they can't compromise these computers unless they're inside the network. See this little circle here? This little circle is what I drew to represent if you're already inside the network. When you're inside the network, you have access to all the machines on the LAN, local area network. And then you can compromise, scan them, whatever. But when you're coming in from outside, you can't. When you're at home, the topology is different than this one. When you're at school, the topology is different from this one. Topology is just an arrangement of machines. How you arrange the machines to create a security situation. So when you're at home, probably all of the machines are forward-facing. They're all directly connected to the World Wide Web. But they have a software firewall that filters suspicious traffic. So topologies can be completely different from one another. Just keep that in mind, that not all topologies look like this. Not all of them have a physical firewall in place. See, since you can only access the forward-facing machine from the web, it means you have to be inside the actual network for you to scan the internal machines. There are ways to compromise firewalls and get your hands on the inner machines, but that will be discussed later. The most important thing to be mindful of about topologies is that they're meant to make the network harder to compromise and to fiddle with the traffic inside maliciously. Traffic inside the network, the local area network that you see here, traffic inside here is assumed to be safe. That's why when you're inside the network, you have a lot more power than if you're outside in the World Wide Web. Okay. So that should be all for today. And if you have any questions, either post to the Slack or the Facebook group, or